So hi, everybody. Thanks for coming to meet us on a Sunday, a little bit earlier than normal. This is a junior developer happy hour, and Sam and I started this about 3 months ago. We both recognized that it was going to be getting even harder for junior developers to get their first role out of like boot camp, or if you're self-studying, or even a computer science role, computer science degree, sorry. So we have just been meeting every weekend for the past couple of months and trying to find different perspectives so everyone can ask questions that they're interested in asking, and hopefully help you all land your first job. So nobody gives up in these next couple of months, since it's always a grind getting that first job. A little bit about me. I went to a coding boot camp in 2017. I have a liberal arts background. I studied a lot of languages and never really knew what I wanted to do when I grew up. And then after studying like Spanish and Italian and German, discovered that computer languages are really cool too. And I could make really cool things out of these computer languages. And that eventually led me to going to Dev Bootcamp, which unfortunately is not open anymore. But that was a great experience for me. And yeah, I highly suggest it for anyone who's thinking about going to a boot camp. I now work at Nordstrom Trunk Club. Most of my work has been front end for the past year or so. My team specifically focuses on the onboarding experience. So if a customer is thinking about signing up for personal styling, our job is to make that sign up as smooth as possible so that we don't get people dropping off during that experience. I think that's probably enough about me. I can hand it over to Sam, and then we'll let our special guest introduce himself.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? I'm Sam, co-host this meetup with Brady. I'm currently a front-end developer at Lyft. I work on internal tools in the mapping organization. So I work with React, TypeScript, Node.js, DeckGL, which is an Uber open source library, which is funny because I work at Lyft, but they have good open source tools. So yeah, I also went to the bootcamp kind of a while ago. I was in one of the earlier cohorts, 2013 spring I graduated. So that was when I started my journey. I mean, I started my journey a long time ago, but that was when I started my journey professionally. I got a computer science degree as well, long time ago, which I never ended up using until I went to the bootcamp and actually could build apps. So yeah, I graduated in 2002 with a computer science degree. So it took me 11 years to get my first job. So don't give up. I gave up too fast the first time. After like 6 months, I think, after I graduated. And then it took the whole journey I took all the way to 2013 when boot camps came out, and then I gave it another shot, and then I actually successfully broke in the second time. So a lot of it is timing. Graduated during the dot-com bust, not a good time. Second time was like startup boom was happening. So yep. I think that's the short version of my intro. We'll let Rod get started and introduce himself. Tell us what Prentus is all about, and we got a bunch of questions already rolling in about Prentus, so that's good.
Now I'm hyped for it. So yeah, hi everyone. I'm Rod. I'm founder and CEO of Prentus. Our main business is connecting businesses and bootcamp grads specifically for internships, but we also have a large and growing community for bootcamp grads to connect and network. I'm also a part-time data science mentor at Thinkful, which is another bootcamp, and also worked in data science before at American Express. And yeah, so now, you know, I've been in the startup world for a couple of years now, so know all about product development and the coding part, design, everything. So it's been a fun journey so far, and yeah, excited to hear questions and share it.
Awesome.
I'm seeing Sam has posted the Slido link. Thank you so much. And is also on top of the LinkedIn. I'm going to post my LinkedIn. And Rod, if you'd like to connect with people, you're welcome to post any links in that chat. Usually if anyone is new today, we are posting the questions that we would like to get answered in the Slido, because that's the way that we can upvote. And then any sort of follow-up questions, the chat in Jitsi itself is a great place to put those. And that's where, if we end up talking about different resources, that's where we'll put those as well. And I wish I were better at doing two things at once, but here is my LinkedIn. And then after this, I'll work on, in a minute, we'll get this recorded, and then eventually I will have it posted. I've got a YouTube channel that has these videos, and then I make other helpful videos for people looking for their first job in tech. So I will get that posted and share out that link as well.
Oh yeah, you should share the link from the session you did earlier with Rod.
Oh week. Yeah, I don't have that link yet. I don't know if Rod has it.
It's on the YouTube channel. It's like, yeah, every like live interview done there automatically gets recorded, and it's at the same link. So if you shared it, you still have the link on your LinkedIn then.
Awesome. I'll get that posted as well. So it looks like we have an upvoted question or two. So I will go ahead and get this started. What's the founding story of Prentus?
Yeah, so Prentus, it actually started with my last startup. So my last startup, it was called Danan, and it was an influencer marketplace geared towards helping local businesses. So mostly small businesses and pretty concentrated on restaurants. So I was working on it for a while, and as a first-time founder, like, I was pretty much a mess, but which is what happens. And in November, I actually brought on a new designer, got a CTO, and we redesigned everything and had to kind of build a platform from scratch. So at the time, since it was just my CTO, we needed some help. And since I worked at Thinkful, I was like, let me see if we can get any interns. So I just posted something in the Thinkful Slack and ended up getting our first intern from there, whose name was Evan. Evan worked with us for about 3 months, and he said before that, like, he was looking for 7 months, just, like, messaging companies on Angel List, which is like a startup website, saying like, hey, like, I will code for you for free, like, just give me a chance. And no one was answering. But after working with us for 3 months, he said that after like 2.5 months, he started applying, and within 2 weeks, he got a job as a full stack developer. So I was like, wow, like that's a great story. And then from there, though, we kind of became reliant on him. So we're like, all right, we need to go get more interns. This time we posted again in Thinkful, and because of that success story, we had another 5 people that wanted to join us. And then they worked with us for a month, and then after a month, they're like, yeah, like, this is so much fun, like, working in a company that I'm getting like real experience again to apply my skills. Like, can I tell my friends? And we were already stretched thin at that point because we can't manage 5 interns with 1 CTO. So ideas start forming. I'm like, hey, like, if these, bootcamp grads or junior developers want to help out companies, I know there will always be companies that want that help. So with, the whole tide of Corona affecting local businesses, kind of shutting them down, and my interest in influencer marketing wavering, decided to close up the last business, and that was on April 17th. And then over the weekend, filed LLC for Prentus and opened it up.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. So, do you have a success story to share from someone who acquired an internship through Prentus? So any other stories besides the one that you just, I guess, shared?
Yeah, so, well, Evan's the only one that was like a full 3 months, that's how long we make the internships now. So right now, the longest internship we have going is they're about to go into their 8th week. And in terms of success story, it's not, hey, they have a job already or they're getting hired. It's still a little bit too early for that, but just talking to the company, like initially they were just trying to get an intern to help out with a specific project, but I talk to these businesses every single week, and they're like, yeah, we're thinking about kind of opening a position maybe. So one thing I'm seeing from not only that business but all the other businesses is, even though they kind of initially came to us for cheap labor to help with a specific project, after seeing the magic and like specifically they reference the energy of these bootcamp grads, they become more susceptible to saying, hey, we want to keep them forever. So I think that's a success story, in that they're seeing the magic of these people that all they need is a chance.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. And then actually that kind of touches on that next question that came up. How do you make sure that interns are placed in companies that actually do care about their growth and aren't just looking for the cheap labor?
Yes. So I don't let any business, just come onto our platform and, choose an intern. I interview all of them before and try to figure out the structure. So there have been companies that came to me and like one person's like, oh, I have, 3 ideas. I want to get 3 interns to build them out, and then I'll see which one sticks. And I'm like, that's not what we do here. So with each of the companies, I always make sure that there's a mentor that people want to learn under. So like the last company I placed someone with, there was actually 2 founders that were both developers with 20 years experience. So, interns are excited to work under them. I know with the job search, sometimes interns, they'll be like, all right, I'll do whatever. Like, I don't care if there's a mentor, but if there is no mentor, it's going to be a bad situation. So I filter out those people. And then also in terms of structure. So even though we'll take, early startups, maybe sometimes pre-MVP, there has to be some sort of, they have to know where they're going. Because there's times where they come to us and they're like, all right, we're just starting out. And then they kind of flip flop between their ideas and what they're going to build. And then it ends up that the intern will waste their time. So we filter those people out as well. And then once you're in the internship, like I meet with both the intern and the business every week for the first month, and then bi-weekly after that. So if there is a situation where it's not working, like we had one company where they kind of made it seem like everything is fine and dandy, but the intern said, hey, I reached out to them on Slack and they haven't answered my question for 48 hours. So after 1 week or 2 weeks, I'm like, all right, we're getting you out of there. So my main goal with the whole internships is to make sure that it provides value to whoever goes through its career.
Cool. So I don't know if you're like tracking. Well, at this point, percentage of interns placed getting hired, it sounds like that's not so possible to say, maybe.
Yeah.
It's 100%, right? You only had one.
Yeah, I'm 100% batting average. But well, with that percent, like I will say that internships in general will always increase your chances of 1, getting an interview, but then 2, nailing that interview. Because like if you go into an interview, like you always want to relate your stories to how, like this. So they ask, like, tell me about time you did this. You want to relate it so they could see, okay, so they can have this story apply to my business. And if you actually work in a business versus just like, a side project, it's different. It's like, hey, I helped this startup build this whole feature for their business, and then that led to 30% increase in revenue for them. So something like that is huge to nail and get a job.
Yeah, I think. I know I had mentioned the other day I worked someplace essentially doing a free internship, and I didn't necessarily even talk about it that much at my at the when I was going through the hiring process when I ended up getting hired for a paid job. But I think just having that on the resume made it clear that I was able to work with groups and tackle new technologies I hadn't learned in the boot camp.
Yeah, and that's another thing. That's like you learn stuff that wouldn't be covered in the boot camp, because the boot camp is made to give you a foundation, but there's so many other things to learn and directions to go in that you kind of only see if you work in a company.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, definitely.
All right, next one up. Other than internships, what can bootcamp's grad do to stand out and make it to the interview?
Yeah, so what I think everyone has to become nowadays is a great marketer, and specifically a great copywriter. So, writing posts, writing blogs, and writing emails. So cold emails, cold LinkedIn DMs. Because if you do that, then you can get the attention of whoever. It doesn't matter who they are. And then with getting an initial interview, like there's so I've hired in the past, and people might apply through the original source. And then there's people that will just, slide in my DMs, and somehow I get dragged into having a conversation with them, and they get to the top of the list, and then I interview them. So it's the same with other companies. It's like, as soon as you start having a conversation with that person, they're more likely to be open to being like, hey, how can I help you? Oh, you want to get seen for this job? Let's talk.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the other day we had a similar question, and I think what I had wished I had also answered, or what I wish I'd talked about, like open source. I don't think that came up. Like any sort of extra project outside of your bootcamp projects are going to be something that shows people looking at your resume that you really are passionate about doing this. And we've talked a couple of times in these meetups about how if you find a company that has an open source project, that's a good way to get people who you could potentially have as like coworkers to be familiar with how you work and know if you're easy to work with.
Yeah, they could become your advocates.
Yeah, I brought it up in interviews before too. I contributed to this company called Blockstack, and I increased their test coverage on one of their products by 10% or 10% or something like that. And
yeah.
I just talked about it in the interview. I don't remember which company. I've done a lot of interviews. Yeah.
That's also it's sad that it's another skill that we all need to have besides learning how to code, learning how to be marketers for ourselves. But keeping track of some of those statistics are really, really helpful. I don't know if you were the person who just thought to note, hey, what's the test coverage on this project as I begin and then towards the end? But that's really powerful.
No, it was actually a task. They were actually paying money for people to complete tasks, and one of the tasks was increase our test coverage by 5%. So I was like, I can do that. And then they were sending Bitcoin to people who completed the task.
Awesome.
So, and then the Bitcoin went up. So I got I forget how much I got. It was a good amount for just writing some unit tests. It wasn't that hard.
All right, I'm going to move on to the next question here. How are these internships found? Are the internships scheduled around what the intern can do weekly, time-wise, for a 20-hour a week?
Okay, so it seems like that's two separate questions. So first, on how the internships are found, it's been mostly from kind of Slack groups I've been in with other founders of startups. So and actually one person that came to us, they said they saw our meme on Instagram, so that was cool. But with these companies, like I said before, we filter them out to make sure that they're a fit for it. In some news, we're actually bringing on a sales team for over the next week or two. So hopefully we can get a lot more companies interested in internships to get bootcamp grads and whoever's in our program. And then the second part was how do you do the 20 hours? Was that it?
Yeah, I already archived it, but it was do you match if someone has 20 hours to contribute for an internship? Would you be able to match an intern in that way? Or how, what's the matching process, I think was the general essence of the question.
So for the matching process, it's mostly skills-based. Right now with the kind of intake form we have, we ask anybody that's kind of filled out, the interns, we ask you about your skills, we ask you about information about your projects, and then whether you have, a previous degree in something that might be interesting, or a previous job that might give you some skill that, is extracurricular. And then we also ask kind of what you're looking for, whether you're looking for the small companies that are just starting out, their stage, their industry. And using that, we have a similar form on the business side. And right now I do it manually where I try to match it up as best as I can. But then in the platform that should be launched in the next week or two, it'll be automatic and you'll show like, this is your 96% match. I think also like what they're asking was about how do you allocate the 20 hours. And with the 20 hours, we stress it on both sides. It's however you need to do it. So the reason we made it 20 hours and not, 30 or 40 even, is we want it to be manageable and we want people that might be, working a full-time job because, people have to pay bills. We want you to be able to still get that experience you need to change your career. So businesses, they might require you to make like one meeting, like a stand-up meeting or some sort of mentoring because the whole point is getting mentorship. But the rest of it, it's all up to you on how you want to fulfill it.
Very cool. Okay. What if an intern is directly working on a revenue generating project for the company? Can they still get paid? Would minimum wage laws apply? I'm not sure if that's anything that you've considered yet.
So in terms of getting paid, we do always, ask the companies if they can't afford it, then to do it. So like the last internship we placed, they actually did because that company had just received funding, so they were able to get that done. But with the nature of early startups is usually they're either generating little revenue or no revenue because they're building a product, they're iterating, trying to figure out what works. So they can't afford to pay at that point, which is why we have to do it unpaid. But I always advocate to pay if you can.
Cool. And then is the internship available for bootcamp grads who graduated in early 2019? Or is there a restriction on when people have graduated?
No, there's no restriction. I think when I built the form, I put like a year from today is like the latest you could put, or the farthest back you could put. But it doesn't matter to me. Just if you want to get experience, you definitely sign up.
Cool. These are all very directed towards you. Everyone is very interested in hearing about this.
That's good.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so do prospective interns know what they need to prepare for the technical part of the interview, or how do technical interviews vary from company to company?
So with the technical part of the interview, we usually tell companies that you don't have to even test the technical part. So we don't have every bootcamp on there. And any bootcamp that we have like as part of what you can register with on our site, I've looked at the curriculum. I've talked to people from the actual bootcamp itself. So I'm familiar with the curriculum and what they might have learned. Since we're kind of focused on speed at Prentus, we tell companies skip the technical interview, just have one 30-minute interview to see if they're fit. Because if you can get along with that person and communicate with them effectively, then everything else will fall into place. Because with all these candidates, like they're willing to learn whatever is needed. So.
I love that. I feel like my company is frequently trying to reassess how can we interview people that is fairest for everyone, because a lot of people in like marginalized communities can react in a very different way to a failed interview. Like it can really kill a person's confidence and make them not want to apply any place anymore. And I feel like that could be a much lower pressure way to get evaluated and get some more experience and get some more confidence. I like that.
Yeah, and because like from every kind of bootcamp grad I've talked to, like they love what they do. They're willing to learn, and that's something I stress. Like from that first discovery meeting with the company, I'm like this bootcamp grad will do what is needed to learn the technology that you need. And like if they're falling behind, like they will personally probably reach out to you and say, hey, what can I do better? Because like everyone's always trying to improve. It's crazy.
Here's the next question. I think you had touched on it. How do you find the companies that you work with?
Yes, I touched on it, but right now it's been kind of word of mouth, but also Slack channels with other startups that I'm in. And I'm bringing on a sales team in the next couple of weeks that hopefully get more momentum on that so we can place even more people.
And have you placed some people at an internship that's completely new to the tech stack?
Yeah, so we usually try to match the stack as much as possible, but sometimes like a business will say, yeah, like the stack's not as important for us. So when they say that, then I look more for, interest and kind of matching the industry preferences. So for example, there was a music company and they said, even though they're working with TypeScript and GraphQL, they said, yeah, don't worry about the stack. We just want people that are like interested in the mission. So we got these two people that they knew React and Ruby on Rails. So now they're kind of learning, and it makes it kind of slower in the beginning for the internship because you have to adjust this new language and figure out how to write it, especially with TypeScript. But overall, like it depends on the company. I think caring about the mission is probably the most important thing.
In my experience, all the companies are the same way. They don't care too much about the stack. It's, do you align with the mission and the culture of the company?
Yeah, people can learn technology. I think a lot of people, even though it can take some time, people eventually learn it.
Yeah, exactly.
And you said the internship hours are like 20 hours a week?
Yeah, 20 hours a week, split up however you want. Like you can do, 10 hours on Saturday and Sunday, and then, or if you want, you can just do like a little bit on like Monday and then a little bit on Thursday. So however you can fit into your life, then do it.
It's great to have that flexibility.
Yeah.
Does Prentus have any right to represent clauses or contracts for bootcamp grads that sign up? I personally don't fully understand what's being asked. Do you?
I don't know what right to represent is. I might have it in the internship agreement that we do, but I don't know it specifically.
If Rich, if you want to clarify in the comment section, I'm sorry, I'm not really sure.
Like a payback clause. So I'm gonna say no. Like if you drop out of the program, you're on the line for a few grand. Oh, okay. So no, you're not on the line. So I try to stress like multiple times before entering into an internship that only go into the internship if you can commit to finishing it. Because if a company comes to us and then, they get an intern and they train them for the first 4 weeks and then the intern just drops out, that company loses time and then it makes Prentus look really bad, which ruins it for everyone else going forward. So we just stress that, even if you somehow get a job like midway through, just to finish it out. That way Prentus looks good and then more people can benefit in the future.
Cool. Have you had any negative feedback from a company about an intern?
Negative feedback. Not really. I think there was one company that they had a friend that they referred, and they thought their intern would be better suited to that friend. So they transferred that intern to that friend and then got someone else through us. But that's like the closest thing to like negative feedback. Otherwise, it's been, mostly positive in terms of like, again, the energy is the biggest thing that everyone harps on in terms of it. They say it brings like intangible value to the company, just having that person around in the meetings and everything.
How do you get feedback from the companies? Is there like a weekly form they got to fill out, or do you schedule like a one-on-one with them?
Yes, I schedule 15-minute check-ins. So since it's like we're early, it's like you have to get product feedback at every step, and I'm trying to learn like what works, what doesn't. So like I've been able to like refine more on the companies we choose, and then also the messaging to give interns to understand what to expect. So that's why I meet every week, and then I also write an internship handbook that's posted on our site. So I send that before. It's 4 parts, and I send that like the Sunday before for each week to the intern and to the business.
Cool. What sort of stuff is in that handbook, or any?
Yeah, so it's a lot of stuff that can kind of be applied to all employees, but also just trying to set the right expectations. So, some companies, they might know, when you bring an employee on, they're not going to really produce for the first month. So that's one of the things I set expectation for is, hey, like, don't be like, all right, we have this urgent project, like you're gonna build out this urgent item, because 1, the intern is working 20 hours per week. 2, they don't know your business yet. And 3, they're not, like, while they have the skills, they're not fully experienced yet. So you need to give them time to ramp up. So after, first 4 to 6 weeks, then you can kind of put a little bit more hands off and say, hey, we need this delivered, but still don't give them something that's expected to be done with a full-time workload, because they are working 20 hours. So just trying to make sure that expectations are managed on each side, encouraging communication through Slack or whatever kind of means you have, and just making sure, everyone cooperates to get the biggest outcome out of it.
Cool. This next question is, should we wait until we graduate from the boot camp to apply to Prentus?
You don't have to. So when you fill out our form, you can put your estimated graduation date. And then as soon as like the graduation date passes, it'll be like added to the system. So you can do it now, you can wait. That doesn't really matter in that sense.
Okay. And then this one, we've also talked a little bit about how you have the one-on-ones with the interns, because the question was, what kind of vetting does Prentus do to make sure the intern they are sending represents Prentus well? Are there any sort of mid-internship check-ins besides, you've got the one-on-ones every single week?
Yeah, so, we have the one-on-ones every week. It's usually 15-minute check-ins. Sometimes it's specific questions, but usually asking, like, what are you working on? Do you think anything can be improved? And that's something that I kind of work on with the founders as well. So with one intern, they're talking about communication, the tools, and they're like, yeah, like, I don't know if this tool does the best job of, showing us what to do properly. So then I worked with the founder and said, hey, I think you can improve communication by using this tool instead. So it's on both sides, where we kind of check in and then, get everything on the right direction.
Great. And what are the expected next steps and turnaround time after someone signs up on the platform?
Yeah, so right now it is going to be a bit of a wait. So like the initial people signing up, we're getting placed sometimes like within 3 days. But with the growth of the Prentus community and some of the other things we've been doing, I think we're almost at like 180 signups. So there's a big queue, but that's why I'm bringing on the sales team. So until they get on board and everything, it'll probably be, I would say, around 6 to 8 weeks before we get back to getting the queue dealt with. So I know it's a little bit long in the job search process, which I apologize about that, but do my best to accelerate it.
All right. And this next one is just more curiosity about your experience. Is it a full-time job for you, or is it a side project? Any tips or lessons learned from the launching?
Yeah, so Prentus is full-time, or even beyond full-time. And right now, yeah, we already generate revenue. So that's nice, because my last startup, we didn't generate even $1. And with it being full-time, it's, when you have a startup, it's always more than full-time, because you're thinking about it all the time. And then someone mentions you in a conversation becomes an idea to work on, and then you have to kind of go right into it. So it's not even full-time, it's more of a life thing.
And this one might be something we all can give a different perspective on. Are there fewer junior developer roles right now versus like a year ago? Someone who's like 2 weeks out of the boot camp can only seem to get interviews for mid-level roles.
I can't say for sure, but I will say with, when the job market, like a year ago, it was a candidate's market. So basically you can kind of get whatever you want, high salaries. People there was very few candidates for a lot of roles. now with a lot of companies that might have been hit. So think about, hospitality. So something like the Hilton, they don't need any developers anymore. So those roles have gone down, and companies ask for more now. So they're like, all right, like, yeah, before we were paying $80K for a junior developer, let's try to get a mid-level developer instead. And because right now, like, people are desperate. So it's just kind of what happens with capitalism. And it's probably gonna be tough. Going forward, probably for the next year, but just figure out ways to stand out and keep going. And eventually, with consistency, you'll get whatever you're looking for.
Yeah, the market goes through cycles. So just keep building your skills and network. Like, you don't need to make a ton of money like right out the gate. Like my first gig was $25 an hour. And then my next gig was like in San Francisco, like $48,000 a year salary, mostly equity, because
How'd you eat?
they didn't have any money. They didn't raise any money yet. So I was just taking a chance because I wanted to hack on stuff. And we had a handshake deal that I would get a market rate salary when they raised money. And they fulfilled the promise. So
rare.
I got a $60,000 raise when when we raised some funding, but it took a while. It took longer than I thought it was gonna take. I think it took about a year for us to raise money.
Yeah.
Were you still staying on friends' couches with the 48K?
No, I was lucky. I found a place with rent control, so I was able to survive. Because when they hired me, I had to give them the numbers. Like, the deal was, they're like, just know we're paying you out of our own bank account, and let us know how much you need. We can pay you enough to survive. Like, how much money do you need to like live like comfortably? So I actually, I negotiated. I only said I needed $3,000 a month, because that's how much I needed to live. Like, my rent was like $800 a month in San Francisco. I was like super lucky. I had 3 roommates, but that's still ridiculously cheap for San Francisco.
Crazy.
And I didn't go out. I was just coding every day, 7 days a week. So I didn't need money to like go out and stuff. And so what I asked for $3,000 a month and 7% of the company, or 5% of the company, which is like a lot. Like, that's a lot for a junior developer to ask for equity, but like, that's to like de-risk. If I'm only gonna work for $3,000 a month, I want a chance to like to get paid back a lot, big time, if the company does like work out. So they counter offered, and I got $4,000 a month, but only 2% of the company, which is still a lot for a junior developer.
Yeah.
And the company's still going, but my equity is still illiquid. But I'm just crossing my fingers one day I'll get a bonus in the mail.
That's awesome. Yeah, me looking back at the question, I think probably, I think this part of the cycle, there probably are fewer jobs for junior devs out there right now. But that doesn't mean that in a year we won't see more than there were like just 12 months ago. I had posted a couple of weeks ago in our Slack channel. There were projections of over the next, I think, just 5 years. It was some crazy number of how many tech jobs are projected to be added to the economy. It's like, I don't know if it was like triple the amount that we used to have. It was pretty impressive within just 5 years. So it is tough right now, but it is a cycle, and it's going to get easier in the future.
Yeah, one more thing to add on that is like I've seen a lot of people get kind of worried about no code tools, and then now like GPT-3. What I will say is there will always be need for developers, because even with no code, like there's limits to it. And then even with GPT-3, it might generate, a React app, but there's always going to be more complex stuff needed. So instead of being scared of those kind of technologies, I would look at them as a plus, because they're going to do the dirty work that you don't want to do and give you more of the work that you do want to do.
That's a great point. Yeah.
Yep. I'm stoked on those tools.
Yeah.
I want GPT-3 to just generate the components for me.
Exactly. And then you can focus on the real stuff.
All right, I'm gonna move on to this next question. It's asking specifically, what if the bootcamp that this person went to is newer, like around 2 years old? Are they still eligible? I'm taking that to be asking also, are you expanding the number of bootcamps that you're working with?
Yeah, all the time. I meet with a bunch of different boot camps every week. So if you want me to check them out, then you can just send an email to support@prentus.co, or you can just chat with me on the Prentus website, and I'll make a note and talk to someone from there and probably add it.
Cool. How is Prentus distinguishing itself from competitors? Are there competitors?
I have not seen a competitor. Closest thing I saw there was one company, I think they're called Apprenti, which they work with colleges, and they're really in local areas trying to work with companies to go through apprenticeships in that sense. But working specifically with boot camps, nothing of that sort, which is one reason I thought it would be a good idea to do this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Or,
sorry, go ahead.
Was what you posted, Sam, a competitor?
I don't know if it's a competitor. I just saw it yesterday, but it's a site that links up people, real world projects with people who want to gain experience. So kind of similar idea, but yeah. I don't know too much about it. I just saw somebody tweet about it yesterday.
Yeah, for this, I've seen a couple like this where there's projects and you can work with other people, and I think that's also great. So I don't know how many people here are subscribed to the Product Hunt, but I've seen a lot of products that are kind of like this, but also just for general mentorship. So if you're not subscribed to Product Hunt, I would get subscribed to them.
Yeah, all those kind of things are good to pay attention to. I think Product Hunt, just using Twitter at least for a little bit every day, and building. Make sure you follow all the developers though, otherwise your feed might not help you with your job search. You gotta follow you gotta build your Twitter feed to be if it's not just developers, you can follow lists. I have a Twitter list of just developers. I can post that in the comments for people that are not subscribed to the list. So people who are not that good at Twitter, there's multiple ways to browse Twitter. You can just view the feed, and if you haven't taken time to manage your feed, it might be a lot of noise, and it might be hard to find the signal. The other way to browse Twitter is through lists. So a lot of people have React developer list, and then that if you just browse Twitter by looking at the list, it will be mostly about React. I mean, those people on the list might tweet about other stuff from time to time. I'm the same way. I tweet about all kinds of stuff. So if I'm on a list, I'm on some of the React lists actually, and so I'll have other tweets that pop up in that list. So just in case people have never looked into all the features of Twitter, list only became a thing a couple years ago, I think, and I think a lot of people don't use it.
Yeah, I second Twitter. Since Twitter is a huge for tech, I would definitely go on there. And also one other thing is with Twitter, it's not just looking at people that are straight coders, but also follow people in the startup community, because they talk a lot about product development. And whenever you're coding, you're creating a product. So it's a lot of good lessons you can find out from there as well.
Do you have any suggestions on startup startups that you're following right now on Twitter?
I honestly have no idea who I follow on Twitter. I think I just started with following like one person that might have been recommended, and then just like stuff kind of pops up in your feed. And I think Twitter algorithm is good in that sense, in that it kind of gives you other people to follow that you'd be interested in.
Yeah, I just followed you. I just found you.
Perfect. Yeah, I just started 3 months ago, so I'm still building up those followers.
Yeah, I was the early adopter of Twitter. 2007, I've been on Twitter.
Wow, OG over here.
Yeah, I didn't use it consistently for the whole time. I veered into Facebook for a while, and then now I don't even have Facebook on my mobile devices and stuff.
Yeah, I don't think any people do really, except my mom.
Right. Yeah, so I use Twitter a lot more now. It's my favorite social media platform, but it takes a while to like learn how to use it well and get a lot of signal from it. But yeah, I follow every single company that I think sounds interesting. If I listen to podcasts and they're talking about a new startup, I like pause the podcast and go on Twitter and like look for the company and follow them. I go on LinkedIn and Twitter and follow the company because they might have opportunities in the future, or like talking about something interesting that I want to work on. So
yeah,
I'm always keeping options open for like the future, even though like I'm not looking to make a move right now. I work at Lyft, it's pretty good, but it's not 100% that Lyft will like succeed, just because they came this far. Like,
yeah, it's true. And then even with like interviews also, it's like once you do get a job, like it doesn't hurt to go out and like interview maybe a couple times a year just to keep your skills fresh and also see what's out.
Yeah, see what's going on. There's always like new exciting things going on. So I listen to a lot of podcasts. I just go on bike rides and I listen to like startup podcasts. And
what's your favorite?
I don't have a favorite, but one that I've been listening to a lot lately since I work at Lyft, like in the transportation space. I've been listening to what's it called? Micro mobility. Have you heard that one?
Not heard of that one. I will look that up.
So people interested in transportation, they focus on micromobility, which is one of the terms that's like going around now. It's like about the cities transforming into more like sustainable ways of transportation, like the shared bikes and scooters and whatever, all that kind of stuff. So they interview people like they just had one where they interviewed somebody from Lyft about like the bike sharing network, and they did one about like some electric bike company. I forget what the name is. And like how the cities are like transforming, like, and like a lot of people see cities like transforming, like going and becoming really micro mobility friendly and getting less cars on the street. Because even Lyft, one of their big goals is they want to reduce the amount of cars being driven on the road. So that's why they have their whole bike product. I take a Lyft bike every day now, almost. I just go outside and
How far do you ride?
I go to Berkeley on the Bay Trails. I live in Emeryville. It's about 4 miles. But sometimes I go farther. Like today's Sunday, so I'm probably gonna go past Berkeley. I'll probably go like 7-8 miles maybe, round trip. Maybe farther. I don't know. We'll see. I kind of just go exploring now on the bike. But other podcasts, I'll post the links later. I listen to a lot of macroeconomic podcasts, and I listen to A16Z.
He's good. You also listen to Twist this week in startups.
What is it called?
This Week in Startups with Jason Calacanis.
No, I watch his other one, All In, the one with Chamath.
That one's good. Also,
I'm a big fan of Chamath. Jason, I follow him a little bit. I'm not a huge fan, but Chamath, I really like Chamath.
Yeah, Chamath's been in the news a lot lately.
Yeah, there's another one called The Brink. I like that one. Is more about like just more economic stuff and more about like crypto stuff because I'm also like big into Bitcoin. Like I like Bitcoin. I like the micro mobility space, ed tech stuff, fintech. That's like stuff I'm most interested in. So I find out about these podcasts from like Twitter and on the podcast they talk about other podcasts and they talk about companies, and that's how I follow companies. I watch a lot of YouTube, and like YouTube and Twitter are my favorite social media platforms.
YouTube,
like by far. Yeah, YouTube is good. So I watch YouTube every day.
One podcast I want to shout out to everyone is called Beyond the To-Do List. So like I see a lot of people posting, especially this past week, about like, you know, managing your workload and burnout and how to work effectively. And it's called Beyond the To-Do List. And it gave me a lot of tips that have honestly helped a lot in terms of like optimizing my schedule, my mental, and everything. So I listened to that a lot like a year ago, and that's how I kind of got optimizing my schedule. But shout out to Shannon, because I know she was asking about it one time.
Awesome. I'm going to go ahead and move us on to the next question. Can we talk a little bit more about effectively networking on LinkedIn? I feel weird and I'm not sure how to actually do it, so the potential referral comes organically.
Yeah, so networking on LinkedIn, I think it's just a matter of kind of putting yourself out there. So a lot of people will be scared to, they might just like lurk and not even like at first someone's post, but go ahead and like it, support it, leave a comment, ask a question. People like to be asked questions because most people like to, you know, kind of feel important. And if someone's commenting and saying like, hey, how did you do this? Or wow, like that sounds amazing. Can you speak more on this? Like they're always going to answer. And especially on LinkedIn, it's not like Twitter where you say like one thing and people start, you know, roasting your whole life. And LinkedIn, everyone's really trying to be helpful. So just take a chance, say something. And, you know, as long as you're not being mean, then you're going to be fine on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I'd like to point out that I only met Rod through LinkedIn.
See?
He posted something. Apparently one of our mutual connections had like interacted with it, so it showed up on my feed. And I was like, oh my gosh, this company sounds really cool. I think the people from our meetup would love to know about it. I'm going to write him. Worst case scenario, I guess maybe he ignores my message. Maybe he comes, best case scenario, maybe he comes and talks to everybody here. So I think, yeah, if you have seen someone post something, that's an easy way in to comment about, oh, this thing that you wrote about or this thing that you created is really cool. I'd like to be connected. And you can just leave it at that. If you are trying to target people at a company that you really want to work at, you can say that. You can reach out to them and let them know that I think this company is wonderful and I'd like to hear your experience on it. And coming from a place of curiosity is a really good way to come at it. Don't come at it like demanding that they help you with anything. I think it makes it you can hit the send button and still feel weird. Like, oh, I wonder what their interpretation of that message is going to be. My solution to that, I'm realizing the more messages like that I send out, there's going to be like maybe a 10% rate of people responding. And if I've just sent out a bunch, then I can't sit there and feel weird about every single one. I kind of forget about some of them. Mm-hmm. So that could just be my personality, and maybe someone who's more introverted doesn't feel the same way about it. But keeping myself busy enough to not reflect and get worked up about stuff that I've sent out has been a good strategy for me.
Yeah. Also, just like to add, for posting content, I just wouldn't think about it too much. Just post whatever you're doing. Like, don't try to post for engagement. I wouldn't suggest that. Just post what you're doing. What did you code today? Share your projects. Like, just shameless self-promotion. Just somebody might connect with it. Or if you had a problem or if you're struggling, you can just ask for help also on LinkedIn. And if you start posting consistently, like in the beginning, you probably won't get any engagement. You probably get 0 likes. Like, people just won't see it, especially if you don't have a lot of connections. But all it takes is one like post to go viral, and like there'll be like tons of people that just start looking at your profile. So make sure your profile is like filled. Like, that's one of the important things on LinkedIn. You gotta like make a full profile. If you complete it fully, I don't know what the metric is, but they give you an all-star status. At some point I got it. I don't know what I did. I don't know how they like determine that. Like, I just, over the years, I just consistently update it. I'll like add in certificates sometimes. I've asked people for referrals. So you can just ask people for like, not a referral, but what do you call it? Like the testimonial thing that LinkedIn does. So if you worked with somebody on a project, you can ask them to like write up something for you. Like, they won't always do it, but if you ask 5 people and 1 person does, at least you got 1 testimonial now on your LinkedIn. And if you share code or projects or something, I recommend making a GIF to like put in the post. Like, here's one to like for code sharing. I think it like helps a lot just to like add a picture or a GIF.
Images are really helpful for sure.
I use this tool called Licecap, I think, to make the GIFs. There's probably better ones, but I've been using this one for a while, so I just keep using it. I think Giphy has like a better one that people like told me about. I just haven't tried it yet. Licecap is the one I use. So like, I made a post with just a GIF about the GitHub profiles, and I just put like the cool Doge GIF in my profile because that's my favorite emoji in Slack. And like, that post got like, for some reason, like 300 something likes and 15,000 views or something. And I wasn't expecting that. I just like posting something that I thought was cool. So
yeah, if you're still, oh, sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, you never know. Like, it's always like stuff you don't expect that just like starts getting a lot of engagement, like out of nowhere.
Yeah, if you are just starting out trying to build some contacts, don't forget to just every day try to think about every single person that you know. I've connected with a bunch of people that I went to high school with over the years, and I'll be surprised if I post something about getting, like, learning how to code and starting in that career, how many people that I never would have thought being in the same industry as me, but they're thinking about getting into the same industry as me. So definitely, if you went to a boot camp, connect with everybody that you possibly can that you met at the boot camp, like your cohort mates, the instructors, because having a lot of contacts is, in the end, going to be really helpful in getting engagement. And then if you are putting out content, people end up reaching out to you, wanting to get connected with you.
Yeah, I'll say one more thing on LinkedIn is, don't think about what can go wrong. Think about what can go right. So like, when I was working at Amex, for example, we had a position opening on our team, but like, my boss didn't even post it yet. This girl reached out to me on LinkedIn, just started talking, asked like some questions, and then she's like, yeah, like, I'm interested in a position like this, like, just in case anything comes up. And I was like, actually, my team is about to hire for that. And she got an interview. I don't know if she ended up getting it because I left Amex by the time the interviews were going on. But just like from that, like, proactively reaching out before there was even a role open, got her in the door.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, and people notice like people that are consistent too. Like, I notice, I don't know if everybody does, but like, when I see a junior developer and they're like posting every day, they're doing 100 days of code and they stick with it, it becomes noticeable. If they like stick with it to the end and you see them do 100 days every day posting what they did, you notice that kind of stuff. Like I definitely do, and I'll feel more comfortable referring that person for like a position when a position comes open, because I know they're serious. They like really want it. Like other people might really want it, but it's like, how do I know if you're not like telling everybody what you're doing? So.
All right, it's time to post 100 days of code. That time comes every single week. There we go. 'Cause I don't know how much we've talked about it today.
I just use the hashtag for post.
But yeah, I love 100 days of code, even though I never did it. I should do it. I should do it in solidarity.
Oh, and I just saw Mark was asking a follow-up question. Should we post every day, even when we're working on some small piece or what seems like silly work? Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, me too. I remember the first time I ever heard about it. It was before I went to boot camp, and one of my friends out in the Bay Area was kind of acting as my mentor, and he was trying to get me to do that. And I never ended up doing it, but he was talking about some girl that got a job, and she was literally just making she was working with CSS and JavaScript, and she made like some bacon image kind of like float around the page, like totally useless, but it was little stuff like that proved that she was learning CSS and just coding every day. And that was really, really valuable.
Yeah. There's a lot of people now that post like all these awesome CSS things with the 100 days of code. Yeah,
I've seen that where they build like full on images, like just straight CSS.
Yeah. Somebody's like, I made this face with one div. I'm like, I don't know how they did that, but they like totally drew like their whole face. Like, I think it was like a personal like portrait, and they're like, I only use one div.
Yeah. And what's like also like really good about that, like specifically CSS, is I know a lot of times where companies or specifically job openings, they'll say like, be really good with CSS, but a lot of people hate CSS. So it becomes like kind of like, oh, I'm the CSS person, and it can help you stand out.
Yep.
Oh, we got another follow-up question on 100 days of code. I think it's more on Twitter, but like what happens is a lot of the trends on Twitter bleed onto LinkedIn. Like, I don't know if people have been paying attention on Twitter the past couple of days, but the thing that's trending now is like, I have a joke about something.
Yeah.
Just go on Twitter and type, I have a joke, and you'll see what I'm talking about. But now I see it bleeding into LinkedIn. It started to show up on LinkedIn. I saw it today, but it's been trending on Twitter for like the past 2 days. My whole feed is just, I have a joke about TypeScript or JavaScript or whatever. So yeah, but I see most people do 100 days of code on Twitter, but then it does bleed in over LinkedIn. LinkedIn's algorithm is weird. Like, people will engage with it like a week after you posted it sometimes. And Twitter's not like that. Twitter, like after a week, your tweet is dead. Unless it gets retweeted for some reason. So it's more real time. So you see what people are doing in real time. For 100 days of code, I think that works better, because like for me, for the people that I follow that are doing 100 days of code, I see it when it's the day they did it. So it's like, day one, I did this. And sometimes I comment on it. And then sometimes other people end up jumping into it too. Like, I've commented on it, and like Can't See Dodds like even jumped in like the comment. For people who don't know, Can't See Dodds is like a prolific React developer. He makes all these React courses. He used to work at PayPal, and now he like quit to like just to teach people React mostly. Yeah, there's that's another trend I noticed. A lot of these people are quitting their jobs to make educational content. So you can find a lot of sources out there, especially in the React community. There's a lot of people doing that.
Mm-hmm. All right, here, next question is for Rod again. Any thoughts on creating a more rigorous vetting process for an apprenticeship type program where some work for 6 months with a company and then is 100% guaranteed to be hired?
So initially, like, we have the name Prentus because I was calling it apprenticeships, but then had some discussions with people, so we changed the word to internships. But in terms, like, when I was looking up how apprenticeships traditionally work, it's usually, 1 year, you get paid the whole time, and it's 100% guarantee of a job. So for that, like, I would love to do that. It's something that you need more, like, traction, more people, more infrastructure to do it. So down the line, I do want to, try to focus on making a more transition to apprenticeship type programs. But for now, it's just easier to have internships, which is why we're focusing on that.
Cool.
Speaking of apprenticeship, I just posted the Lyft apprenticeship, which just opened on Friday.
Yeah.
I highly recommend people apply. I posted a link in the Slack. So if you join our Slack, you can apply. I'll post it on LinkedIn tomorrow. I wanted to give our Slack people a few days a head start before the application floods in at Lyft. Huh?
With the apprenticeship program, does Lyft, like, teach them new skills, or is it more just kind of exposing them to everything and then eventually into a job?
I don't know too much details, but on the I might get more details later because I volunteered to, like, help out with it. But the job description has, like, a bunch of information. I can post it in the chat here. But yeah, it's like, I think it's like 8 months long or something like that. And, like, I don't know what you work on, but they got, like, a whole program. Like, Lyft is pretty good about developing these kinds of programs. Like, I have an intern right now and it's very structured. Like, I had to do all kinds of stuff. Like, they're like, make sure you do this whole checklist before the intern starts, and then you have to set up a meeting. They're like, you have to set up this kickoff meeting, and here's all the things you need to do in the kickoff meeting. You have to schedule one-on-ones with the intern every week. You have to do a midterm evaluation, feedback, and then discuss the feedback with the intern. So, like, it's really structured. It's like, it's kind of overwhelming, actually. There's, like, pages and pages. It's like pages and pages and pages of stuff that I have to do as a mentor. So, like, in the internship, every intern has a mentor. I don't know if the apprenticeship is like that. I would assume probably it is.
I would assume probably, yeah, even more mentorship.
Yeah, so I don't know. Yeah, I'll just post a description.
That's good.
So moving on to that next question, are all internships remote, or in a post-COVID world, do you imagine in-person internships?
So right now, it's just all remote. It's easier to do with COVID, and I'm a huge remote work advocate in terms of, it saves you time, basically you can work in the schedule that fits you and makes you the most productive, which is different for each person. So we're kind of focusing on that, but there have been companies that they prefer someone that's in their city, just in the case that they maybe do want to go to in-person. In the future, if there is a big demand for finding people in specific cities to go to office, like, I'll totally be open to it. But for now, yeah, just remote.
Cool. And we had talked about stats for transitioning a little bit earlier. So far, 100%. And we were just talking about mostly remote. Is Prentus, is the code base open source? Can people poke around and contribute?
So we actually are built on Bubble. So that's one of those no-code platforms. And so the biggest thing is, since we're kind of in the Wild West now, it's figuring out what is needed and kind of optimizing from there. But I have thought about in the future having where, people that might either be waiting to get placed for an internship or just in the Prentus community that we have, to be able to, just every person add like a little bit and then eventually have this great matching video chat integrated and everything. So it's something that I have in my mind, but I want to make sure that the product requirements are set up first before going in that route.
Bubble?
Yeah, in Bubble. But also to mention on that, I do have a friend that's actually a designer about to come out of Thinkful's program, and they're going to be doing all the designs in Figma from now on. So once that's like all set up, I'll look more into, going the code route.
For Bubble, is it completely no code, or can you customize it like with like some custom code if you want?
Yeah, no, you can add JavaScript. I was actually asking Shannon to help me with something because I'm like integrating. I need to add like an event listener for like a Calendly integration. So there is that, and then certain coders will also create their own plugins for different apps. So like for example, they added Twilio recently, Twilio video chat. So like I'm integrating that, but then you might still need to integrate something with HTML or run some server-side JavaScript. So and also you need to know about how projects work. So like if I didn't work in my last startup and like build a digital product, I would be pretty lost right now. So you need to know like, okay, like development and production environment, how to set up a database, and all these other kind of things that go into building a product. It's really, really robust though. So you can do almost anything.
Awesome. I've never even heard of it. I gotta check it out.
Yeah, me either.
They've been around since 2014, I believe. But yeah, like I think the biggest thing right now is most of the people that have built on it are actually developers, but developers that don't really care about design. So it's kind of gotten a bad name for like not being beautiful. But I like design. I think Prentus's current version looks pretty nice, but I think as more people go into it, and they just added where you can build a design on Figma and then have it go directly into Bubble. So that's gonna be exciting to see how that works.
Nice.
That'll be cool. Yeah. Hey, we ran out of questions.
Awesome. That's good. We're getting faster.
I guess it helps when only one person can answer 90% of the questions.
Yeah. We should figure out how to do that all the time.
What is it usually? Is it usually like a lot of just like general questions like everyone answers?
More like the LinkedIn networking question where we all have a little bit of something to say and then it all ends up taking 2 hours.
Yeah, I talk too much, so that's probably why.
I'm guilty of that too.
No more
I
questions?
don't see any more questions. All right. Well, let's go ahead and wrap this one up. I will stop recording and then we can do intros.